Welcome to Bloodbath and Beyond. Today I'm reviewing Lake Bodom. Here, there are no happy campers. Lake Bodom is a Finnish film directed by Taneli Mustonen, starring Nelly Hirst-Gee, Mimosa Willamo, Mikael Gabriel, and Santeri Helinheimo Mäntylä. My apologies for butchering all of your names. Anyway, Lake Bodom is a movie based on actual events. This was the biggest unsolved homicide case in Finland. 3 people were murdered, and 1 was badly beaten, but actually lived. But the actual murderer was never caught. So, since then, people have come up with different theories on what actually happened that night. Well, I'm not sure if this is actually one of the theories based around Lake Bodom, or if it was made specifically for this movie, but the film is directly influenced, at least, by the true crimes. Back when we did trailer reactions, I saw the teaser, and it looked beautiful. So I've been wanting to see this ever since. I recently picked up a Shudder account, and Lake Bodom was on there. They have a lot of foreign films, which is really nice, but this was the second movie that I watched on Shudder, and I'm happy I did. The production value of this movie is super high, and we knew that already because we saw the teaser, and we saw the incredible cinematography in that one, and in the film, all of the camera moves in this movie are just immaculate. I absolutely love all of the long takes, just the way that scenes transition into each other. The cinematography is just so well done. The acting and the characters were also great. And when it comes to foreign films, it's really difficult for me to understand if a person is great at acting or not because I'm reading the subtitles. But in all of the situations in this movie, the characters were believable through their facial expressions and the way that they were presenting their characters. It all seemed fairly realistic in how people would act when they're put in certain situations, especially when they're in a forest. There's creepy things happening, friends are pulling pranks on each other, scaring each other in the woods, and inevitably people start to die and the characters break down and they're afraid, and it was believable. It's a little bit difficult to talk about this movie without spoiling some of the twists in this movie because there are some, but they kind of happen faster than you think. About halfway through the movie, there's a big tonal change. You learn something new about the situation that they're in, and it kind of becomes a different type of movie, and I really enjoyed it. It caught me off guard, and even when they begin to unravel the entire reason they went into the woods in the first place, which doesn't really happen at the beginning, but it does conclude in the end. It was just a pretty good way of telling the story, and you kind of knew everything that was happening, and somewhat seemed plausible, or at least seemed like the survivor, because you know that there's going to be a survivor based on the theories that exist. It's plausible that that survivor could have just fabricated an entire story that was this movie, or that person is telling the truth. And when it comes to movies that are loosely based around true crime, or they're influenced by a real story, then as the viewer, you're constantly trying to connect the dots and figure out what part was made up or fabricated for the film and what actually draws a direct connection to the true crime. There aren't a ton of practical effects in this movie, but the kills that you get to see do look good, but not because they're super vicious, it's because they just seem real. It's nothing over the top, but there's definitely some really great makeup as well as the blood when somebody gets stabbed. Much like the story, I can't hit on specifics, but the pacing of this movie is really great. Every quarter of the movie or 1/5 of the movie has a different style of delivery. We learn the characters, we're getting scared in the woods, and then something happens and there's chases, there's more stunts. It's just broken up really well, so you won't get bored watching this movie unless you just don't like reading subtitles. And I didn't really see if there was another English audio track, but I would highly recommend reading the subtitles in all foreign films anyway, so that you can kind of get a sense for the acting. It's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what I didn't like about this movie, but there is something that's holding this back from a super high rating, even though I had a pretty good time watching it. It just seemed like there was something lacking. Maybe that is part of the story towards the end, where they kind of do a flashback sequence and they kind of introduce some new character elements that you could have never guessed or picked up on previous. And I think if they kind of told the story in a different order, I think it would have been a little bit clearer from the beginning what some of the characters' intentions were. There's also a little bit of a showdown towards the end, and I think it was a little bit lackluster, but in the last 15 minutes, it just it seems to fizzle off a little bit. But again, it almost has to, because it comes down to the real aspects of the real crime, in which there was no murderer caught. So because there's a murderer, that person has to get away or is not revealed to be the murderer. And even the intro credits briefly explain that this was a true crime story, and it kind of goes over what happened with the case. So because of that, you're gonna know that 3 people are gonna die, 1 person's gonna survive, and no killer was caught. So the very last part of the movie is going to be kind of a letdown because you already kind of know what's about to happen. All in all, this was a great movie. It had excellent cinematography. The production value was super high. The acting and the story and the pacing and everything was fairly quality. But like I said, there's something closer to the end that I feel was missing, and I think that came around where they started trickling out more of the character development aspects that they tried to work in way too late into the movie. They should have like sprinkled that throughout the film, building a couple characters up a little bit better, and I think it would have been a more complete package. But at the end of the day, I was really impressed with this movie, so I'm gonna give this 4 unfortunate campers who don't know what they're in for tonight out of 5. As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't and you do want to check it out, there are links in the description where you can find it. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay updated with everything Bloodbath and beyond.